Happy Easter, people of God in our Wausau parishes, and welcome to this Easter octave edition of Quick Things. So we have come through our celebration of the Triduum, the great 3 days, and wonderful celebrations in our parishes, culminating, of course, with the Easter Vigil and then an Easter morning as well. But the Church, in its wisdom, keeps us on track to continue celebrating continue celebrating the resurrection with some intensity on these days following Easter, the octave, the 8 days that follow Easter. So we conclude next Sunday, the second Sunday of Easter. Now, of course, that occurs most clearly in religious communities and places where a large number of people would come together to celebrate Mass on a weekday. But we'll do our best at our weekday Masses coming up at Resurrection at 12:10 on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and at St. Anne at 7 a.m. on Thursday and Friday as well. We hear wonderful Easter time gospels, the Easter stories. We only hear a couple of them really on Sunday, but we hear more of them as they're proclaimed on these at Mass on the days of the octave of Easter. So the thumbnail for this edition of Quick Things was 3 days, 3 highlights, more or less, that I want to share with you. But I'm not going to talk very long. It seems like Triduum involves, for Father Al and I and other priests, a lot of preaching and a lot of talking. So I'm gonna cut back on that and just let you share. I'm going to share a couple of highlights. I've also included in the Quick Things email links to our liturgies, our Triduum liturgies, with notes as to where you can find the homilies. So if you were at Eastside parishes and maybe wondering what did Father Tom preach about, or if you're at St. Anne and wondering what Father Al preached about, I'll include the links. I think I will not include a link for Holy Thursday. We had some technical difficulties at St. Michael for the Holy Thursday Mass, but for Friday and the Vigil, I'll include those in the emails. So you can check that out. It'll say, go to the 30-minute mark, and that's where you'll find the homily for Good Friday or whatever it would be. So if you're interested in that, my great fear going into Holy Week is because I usually don't have a lot going on in terms of ideas before Holy Week. But my great fear is that I won't find anything to say for these very substantial liturgies that we have. And I am grateful to the Holy Spirit, amazed every year that the Holy Spirit comes through in helping me find something at least somewhat worthy to share with the folks. And I appreciate it. I was pretty okay with the homilies that I had this year. One of them on Good Friday referenced an author, Nadia Bowles-Weber. And I mentioned this book, Accidental Saints. I tell a story that she shares in the book regarding Good Friday. And a couple of folks have already said that they have purchased copies of this book. Now, I said in introducing it in the homily on Good Friday that she is not your typical Lutheran pastor, if there is such a thing. She uses a lot of spicy language. But as one person who is already familiar with the book observed, that's what he thinks gives her authenticity is her language. Well, be that as it may, if you're interested, I'm not sure where I found this book, Accidental Saints, but it is compelling, and I think she brings a wonderful perspective to finding goodness and holiness in people who might otherwise, or might by many others, be disregarded. Again, those links to the homilies are in the Quick Things email. Also included in the email is a Easter Sunday afternoon evening prayer with music from the National Cathedral, the Episcopal Cathedral in Washington, D.C., which is a triumphant celebration of Easter, kind of a follow-up to what they had done at the Vigil and Easter morning, but full of music and scripture and some vibrant music that is part of that celebration. I'm also including a few more links to connect us more with our new bishop, Bishop Gerard Battersby, who will be joining us, installed on May 20th. A podcast, it's a video, but it's a podcast, so there's no real video, but you can hear him with two priests from the Archdiocese who do this podcast. They talk to Bishop Battersby kind of about who he is, but more specifically his vocation story. Among other things, he talks about he was a dog owner at one time. His dog died on the feast of St. Francis, interestingly. He also divulges that he is not a hunter because his father was never a hunter, and so that tradition never developed in his family, which I am always grateful is true of my family as well. So another thing that Bishop Battersby and I have in common, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, I think it was when he was first announced. We were born the same year. He's a few months older than I am. We both went to Catholic grade school, public high school, public university, and then worked several years before we went to the seminary. In fact, he worked longer, although I'm not sure what he did during that time. I haven't quite, maybe it's in the vocation story, which I'll be honest, I have not had a chance to listen to yet. But we also have the reality of not having had to go hunting as part of our story. As I mentioned, we're the same age, more or less, although a parishioner on Palm Sunday at St. Michael's came up to me and she said, well, Father Tom, just so you know, you look a lot younger than he does. That was unsolicited. I don't know if that's even true. We haven't seen him in person. But anyway, it will be interesting to get to know him and to welcome him to our diocese. So it's just a few more pieces, some links of video and story, et cetera, to connect with him, get us an idea of who he is. Two other things. One is it's an Eastside Parish thing, but it could include folks from St. Anne as well, and then a St. Anne exclusive announcement. The Community Culture Fest is held every June, and it's been held the last few years, as far as I know, in the square downtown. This year it's moving to Marathon Park, maybe because of weather issues and things like that. But as I was there last year, I couldn't help but notice that several religious organizations, churches had booths, had tables or whatever with information about the culture of their community. And there was no Catholic presence at the Culture Fest. So I've asked Michelle Fisher, who is the Faith Formation Director for Eastside Parishes, if she would bring some folks together to talk about what we might offer as a Catholic community to share some of our culture at Culture Fest. So if you're interested in that, I'm thinking, teachers might be good in terms of ideas and how to convey some of this. Teachers do bulletin boards and displays and things that might be helpful in bringing all this together. Including a link to Michelle's email address. If you want to contact her, once she's heard from a few people, she wants to bring the group together to talk about what an exhibit of a Catholic exhibit at Culture Fest might look like. And while I kind of at first envisioned this to be, especially to emphasize Church of the Resurrection because it's downtown, just a block from where Culture Fest was held, that's not so much a case anymore that it's moved to Marathon Park. But hopefully from our three parishes, we will bring together some folks to have an interesting, I hope we could do that, to have an interesting exhibit and share some of our Catholic culture, which has been a pretty significant part of the history of Wausau and the culture of Wausau as well. So again, Michelle's email address is in the quick things, and you can connect with that and let her know of your interest to be part of this project. Also, St. Anne is in the beginning stages of coordinating a new parish directory. We haven't had one for 12, 15 years. And so it's time to do a new one. The children who are babies or toddlers in the old directory are graduating from high school or getting married or doing all kinds of adult things. So we need a new directory. We had a good sign up initially, our initial sign up after the Easter masses, but we have hundreds more to sign up. And you can do that. There will be 2 weeks in May when there will be portrait or people here taking portraits of our parishioners. And you can sign up online. There is a link in the email. You'll need a login name and a password, and that's included as well in the email. So please give attention to that. The directory, as I've said, is only successful if we are all in it. And my experience with parish directories is that I can be pretty dogged in going after people, like calling when someone doesn't show up for a 9 o'clock appointment, calling them and saying, you are scheduled for this 9 o'clock appointment. Can you please come in and have your picture taken? And they have. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be calling people. I don't, multiple emails and things like that. So the more of us who get it done, sign up, we're scheduled, we're ready to go, the better off it will be for everyone. Because again, the directory, it takes a lot of work to make it happen. And it really, all that work is only beneficial if we are on track and we're all engaged. As I said on Sunday, we don't do this for ourselves. Lots of us don't really care if we have a picture taken. But it's beneficial for the larger community to have that sense of community, of identity, who we are, who are the other people that we worship with and do projects with and things like that. I have a friend in Stevens Point. He keeps his directory by his chair, where he reads or watches TV. And he said he looks in that directory almost every Sunday when he comes home from Mass to identify someone or remind himself of someone. So it is valuable, and it will be a valuable resource for us, even more so if we are all in it. So again, the link to sign up online is in the email, along with the sign-in name and the password. So 3 highlights of the great 3 days, more or less. First of all, one of my highlights came on Holy Thursday night, when in the reading from Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, there's that wonderful line from Paul. So remember, the second reading at the Mass of the Lord's Supper is the first written documentation of the celebration of the Eucharist, of what Jesus did on that night. Before we had the Gospels, several decades before we had the Gospels, Paul wrote in his second letter to the Corinthians, I received from the Lord what I handed on to you, that on the night before he died, Jesus took bread, etc., etc. I just love that line. I received from the Lord what I handed on to you. And I think it's true of what we're doing as well. We don't make this up. We've received this. And that's what gives it significance. That's what makes it holy. It's not just some creative idea that somebody had. It's something that we've been given. We've received from the Lord what we're handing on to you. So that line struck me. Then at the Easter Vigil, there's the Exalted is the prayer that really initiates the vigil. We begin at the fire and we bless the fire and we light the Easter candle and hope that it'll make it in the door without blowing out. I've had it in Stevens Point. We walked all the way across a parking lot, and we got all the way from the fire to the door. And just as we're ready to go in the door, the candle went out. So we all went back to the fire, lit it again. We made it in that time. I haven't heard that there were any issues of candles going out at either of our parishes. So I hope we made it in from the fire. But then once we're in from the fire is when the real vigil begins, this time of prayerful, remembering the stories of salvation history, and kind of building up to the Easter gospel and the singing of Alleluia. And in that Exalted, this ancient prayer, there's this wonderful sentence, but part of it that really got me was, so the whole sentence is, rejoice, let Mother Church also rejoice, arrayed with the lightning of his glory, the lightning of his glory. But here's the good part. Wow. Let this holy building shake with joy, filled with the mighty voices of the people. Let this holy building shake with joy, filled with the mighty voices of the people. I trust that that's what's happened. I know that happened in the liturgies that I presided at, and I suspect it happened at the others as well, that we maybe not literally shook with joy, but with a pretty good representation, a pretty good output. We did a good job of shaking the building as best we could with the mighty voices of God's people gathered for worship in our churches. And then the third highlight came in a Facebook post. Jennifer was a student in our community in Stevens Point back when she was a student at UW Stevens Point. And I stay in touch with several students through Facebook, which is one of, it has its people will disparage social media for various things, but there are nice benefits that come from that. And we especially got connected during COVID because once we started live streaming, somehow Jennifer found us, and she had two twin boys who are, I believe, are now in second grade. They're the picture of the thumbnail with the email or with the video in the email. And they're in second grade, the same age as my great niece. And they would talk about how they, is it time for church with Father Tom? That they would watch the live stream during those months of COVID, or year of COVID when we couldn't go to Mass. But on Easter Sunday night, I think it was, Jennifer posted something on Facebook with the picture of her boys kind of watching what was happening in front of them. And she says, I'm just going to read what she posted. Happy Easter. This year, the boys attended all of the masses or liturgies: Holy Thursday, Good Friday, the Easter Vigil, and Easter morning. Of all the masses and of all the pictures of them smiling and looking at the camera, I believe this photo, the one that's the thumbnail in the video, this photo best represents our experiences during Holy Week. The boys were excited to attend all of these liturgies. Actually, it was their idea to go to the Vigil on Saturday night and to Mass at 11 o'clock on Easter morning, even though we didn't get home till 11:15 p.m. Now, these are second grade boys, remember? And they were genuinely curious and inquisitive throughout. I love this reading. This is one of my favorite songs. Oh, what is happening now? I hope they always will keep their excitement, wonder, and curiosity. Jennifer expresses exactly what I would hope parents would realize as well if they participated in Triduum and offered their children that opportunity. We had a few, and I think that was true. I talked to a couple third grade boys who had a great time at the Easter Vigil and the reception afterwards. I've tried to convey that these liturgies really are so crucial to forming our Catholic imagination and the things that we do as part of them. I'm not going to suggest that there were lots of families at the liturgies that we've celebrated. There were a few, but I really, that's something I want to bring some parents together and talk about. How my saying it, I think, falls on deaf ears, because what does Father Tom know? He doesn't know how it is to care for children and things like that. I would quibble with that a bit, because I have been around a while and I do know children. But anyway, be that as it may, I would hope that my goal is to bring some parents together, and maybe they can help in this ongoing pursuit or ongoing campaign to help engage children by being present in these wonderful liturgies of Triduum. So a highlight would be the children who were there and the families who were there and everyone who was there. But I really appreciate Jennifer's witness and her kind of dedication to engaging her boys in what is so important to us as Catholic Christians. That's enough. Hey, everybody. Thanks to everyone who made significant, generous contributions in so many diverse ways to our celebration of the Great 3 Days, but also those who make important contributions all the time. Your commitment, your enthusiasm, your creativity, your talent, your generosity is greatly, greatly appreciated. Be well, everyone. And remember, we continue our celebration of Easter, not just for this octave, but the Easter season goes on for 50 days of sprinkling and chanting Hallelujah and proclaiming Christ is risen. He is risen indeed.